We'll move on to our final keynote for today, delivered by Dr. Mahnaz Arvaneh, who's an associate professor at the University of Sheffield in the UK. I've known Mahnaz for a good few years now, and in that time, I've realized the incredible and exciting work that she's doing in brain-computer interfaces. But I haven't heard about the latest work that she's been doing on telerehabilitation after stroke. So, really excited about this. So, I'm going to hand over to you, Mahnaz. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faisal. Thank you so much for having me. Let me share my slides and hopefully it goes well. Okay. So you see my slides, yes?
Yes, Professor.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So hello, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. Here today, I'm going to talk about brain-computer interface for telerehabilitation after stroke. So I give you some background about this generally brain-computer interface, and thereafter I talk about the recent clinical trial that we performed to take brain-computer interface outside of the lab and help patients after a stroke to use this technology for rehabilitation. I'm an associate professor at University of Sheffield, and we do a lot of research on brain-computer interface for augmenting or improving human performance, cognitive performance, and physical performance. So you see some photos taken in my lab. So we use virtual reality, we use robots, exoskeleton, and of course we use EEG, and we try to embed these technologies and come up with better rehabilitation devices. In our lab, we are very interested in human-robot interactions. So a lot of our research is about how a human can control a robot, can communicate with a machine more implicitly. We are interested in stroke rehabilitation and generally physical rehabilitation. I'm going to talk about this part today, but also we are interested in using brain signals and other physiological signals to monitor cognitive performance and also enhancing cognitive performance. We develop some sorts of brain-computer interface-based games as a neurofeedback game for improving cognitive performance, for example, in people who have mild cognitive impairment or they have ADHD. So just to give you a background, what is brain-computer interface? In this picture, you see that we have a lady playing a game on the surface of on the screen of the computer, only using her brain signals. So this is brain-computer interface, a communication system that conveys messages through only directly brain activities. So here you can see the components of brain-computer interface. We record brain signals while users perform some mental activities. A very classic brain-computer interface is motor imagery. So imagine that our user is imagining movement of different parts of the body. For example, imagining movement of their right hand in order to move a wheelchair towards right, and imagining movement of their left hand in order to move the wheelchair towards left. So we record brain signals. In our lab, we use EEG, but there are other modalities also. The brain signals can be very noisy, so we need to apply some sorts of pre-processing algorithms like spectral filtering to increase signal-to-noise ratio. Thereafter, we extract those features, those brain patterns that are related to those mental activities. For example, in motor imagery, we are interested in motor rhythms, mu rhythm, beta rhythm, specifically in motor cortex. And thereafter, we have a classifier that we trained, and the responsibility, the role of our classifier is to identify what type of mental task has been performed by our user. The output of the classifier is a control signal that can be used to control a wheelchair, to control a robotic hand, to control a game on the screen of the computer. The interesting thing about this technology is that the user can observe if their mental activity has been identified correctly or wrongly. So the user can, based on this feedback that they receive, they can change their mental activity, their mental strategy in order to improve the performance of the system. At the same time, we can change these machine learning algorithms, adapt the parameters in order to improve the performance. So it's a system that both machine and human, they are learning together. And this aspect of this technology and how human learn in the loop, how machine and human can work together is a really fascinating research area. But just give you some concept about the challenge that we have. We have this interaction in real time. So we need to have decoders, classifiers that can detect in real time what is the mental activity that a person can do. And motor imagery was a simple one, but there might be many more advanced or more challenging scenarios. So this real-time decoding is a challenge, especially if we use EEG signal. I can give you an example. For example, here we plotted the average of our ERP from C4 when our participant is performing left motor imagery versus foot motor imagery. So you can see there are significant differences between these two signals, but these are average using 400 epochs, 400 trials. But if we look at the single trial, this is as noisy as this. So it's very challenging and important how our machine learning, how AI can help us to distinguish between these two activities in a trial basis, in a single epoch basis. The other challenge that we have in brain-computer interface is that our brains are different. Here you can see the brain patterns activation for 10 participants. They performed right-hand motor imagery, which left part of motor cortex gets activated, versus left-hand motor imagery, which we expect right side of the motor cortex to be activated. We see the same pattern of right side, left, left up, right, left, almost in all our participants, but the activations are not identical. They are similar, but not identical. And because of that, if we train a model to detect brain activities for one participant, it may not be optimal for another participant. So it's a challenge in the research how we can have a more general model. But what we do at the moment is that for each participant, we train their own specific model. So we have to have a subject specific. But the challenges is not limited to this. Imagine you have subject specific. Your participant comes to your lab, you collect the data, you train your model, and this is your classifier. On left side you see, and okay, you get a pretty good discrimination between the two classes, for example, right hand versus left hand. Everything is good, but tomorrow your participant comes to the lab doing the next session, and there is such a big shift in the distribution of your data. So the classifier that you trained yesterday is not optimum anymore today. Why? Because there are many other irrelevant but concurrent activities that may change, like attention, task involvement, motivation, the level of alertness, the level of even the position of the cap, the electrodes might have changed slightly, the amount of gel that you put, sweating, all these things can affect and can cause some variations in the distribution of your EEG data. So this is again another challenge that we have. There are a number of my colleagues, my students in the lab, they are working on having adaptive algorithms, the algorithms that can update their parameters over the time so they can deal with this intra-subject variability. So far you got some understanding about EEG-based BCI, potential challenges that can be very high noise in the signal, and also the other challenges like huge variation from session to session and over the time. Nonetheless, regardless of these challenges, this technology has been improved and developed and showed the specific potential in a number of areas. One of the areas that BCI has shown significant potential is rehabilitation. So people after a stroke, or people after, due to many different neurological conditions, they need to do rehabilitation. And this rehabilitation means reshaping the brain, helping the brain to learn to do activities that they might have been lost, for example, due to a stroke. Physiotherapy is the gold standard for stroke rehabilitation, and it requires one-to-one interaction between physiotherapists and the patient. The challenge is that we have a shortage, a big shortage in physiotherapists. One-to-one physiotherapy is an expensive treatment. In the UK, we have shortage of something around 16,000 physiotherapists, and we know that the problem is going to grow because we have aging population. The number of stroke patients is going to increase, and our prediction is that in the UK, in 10 years, we are going to have twice as we have now as a stroke survivors. I believe it's the same for other countries. We have aging population everywhere. So there are technologies to help us. Functional electrical stimulator is a non-expensive, cheap technology. We can put electrodes on the surface of the limb, for example, hand, and it generates weak, tiny electrical activities, but enough to contract muscles and generate some movements. People can have it at home to do rehabilitation, for example, opening, closing their impaired hand due to a stroke. But the problem is that it increases the muscle tones, but is not connected to brain. It doesn't do anything with brain. It just makes the muscles stronger, which is important, but is not the entire story. So the other one, which is it's much more expensive. We have, robots with thousands or millions of dollars, and they can generate specific movements, repetitive, individualized. But again, the problem is that exoskeleton is working on most of them. They are working on the muscles, increasing the muscle tones, but the movements are passive and they are not connected with the brain. So the connection between muscles and brains cannot be enhanced. So there is a story about, okay, how we can address this challenge, how we can make rehabilitation devices like FES, exoskeleton active. And one of the solutions is using brain-computer interface. For example, here, what we did in the lab is that we asked our participants to imagine or attempt movement of their impaired hand while we recorded brain signals. And if we observed that the correct part of the brain got activated, if we observed activation in the relevant part of the brain, FES could open and close the hand. So we use brain-computer interface to link brain signals to the FES. So now FES is controlled by brain signals rather than just getting open and closed automatically. So this is an active rehabilitation. And interestingly, it has shown big potential. We performed a meta-analysis over all the clinical trials that have been used using brain-computer interface linked with FES or linked with robotic hands, and we observed that this technology significantly improved the outcome of the rehabilitation, even in chronic stroke patients, people who had a stroke more than 6 months ago, and in a lot of places, such as National Health System in England, they believe that they don't offer any rehabilitation after 6 months because there is this assumption that there wouldn't be any clinically meaningful improvement. But this technology has shown that even these people that they had a stroke a few years ago, they can benefit and regain the lost function. But what is the problem? The problem is that the equipment is expensive, a bulky headset to wear, and thereafter the setup time calibration time is long, usually 15 minutes to set up the cap, put the gels, and thereafter 15 minutes record EEG data in order to calibrate the model, and thereafter it's going to be half an hour rehabilitation. So this is not affordable for the system that is currently having shortage in physiotherapists. We cannot waste half an hour of the patient's time, physiotherapist's time, for calibration and set up the system. So we need a system that we can set it up much quicker, much faster, easier, we need to reduce this calibration time. And also, we need to take this technology outside of the lab, so it can be done at home, it can be done in community with the minimum effort from physiotherapists, because we have shortage of physiotherapists. So we try to address this challenge. In our lab, we developed some machine learning algorithms that can reduce the number of electrodes. So we previously did some studies and we showed that we can reduce the electrodes from 20, 30 electrodes to only 6 to 8, depending on different participants. So these 8 electrodes can be different. And also we developed some machine learning algorithms that can reduce the calibration time, so we can use the model that we trained previously and adapt the parameters over the time. So instead of 15 minutes calibration time, we can only have 2 minutes calibration time. Instead of 15 minutes setting up the electrodes, we can reduce it to only 3 to 4 minutes. So now we have a system that has a setup calibration time instead of 30 minutes to only in total maybe 5 to 6 minutes. And the EEG headset is portable, easy, just a few electrodes. So we thought that, okay, maybe this can be done now at home. I cannot go through the details about the algorithms that we developed, because this is a technology that we are commercializing it. So I cannot go through the details of those algorithms, but I can give you some insight about the clinical trial that we did. So we asked our patients, so we wanted the main purpose of this clinical trial was to see if this technology is acceptable by patients, if the patients can perform BCI-based rehabilitation at home. So what we did, we recruit participants, they came to our lab, we trained them how to use the system, how to use EEG, how to connect FES, the functional electrical stimulator. They came with their carer, so we trained the patient and carer, and we passed them these pieces of equipment to them. They took the equipment, everything at home. In the home, there was fixed sessions of rehabilitation, so they had 3 sessions per week. So they had the laptop, they just needed to connect the laptop to Wi-Fi, turn on the laptop, and the rest was done using the physiotherapy. So physiotherapists could connect to the system using a software like TeamViewer, making everything connected, looking at, okay, if the EEG is well connected, if all the electrodes are connected, if FES is connected, running the program and giving instruction to the user. So the instruction was presented on the computer to the user on the laptop, if they are ready, if they need to do attempt to move the hand. So the instruction was this, giving to the user, okay, now you need to imagine or attempt movement of your hand, and thereafter, if the algorithm detecting that they activated the relevant part of the brain, the FES could open and close the hand. And at the same time, the physiotherapists could monitor the quality of the signals, and if needed, they could give them some advice about, for example, putting more gel or improving the setup. So this is what we did. We assessed 13 participants. And we had to remove 4 of them because they were not meeting the inclusion criteria. So we needed the skin to be healthy because FES was needed to get insert, and also we needed we just focused on patients who had moderate to severe impairment due to a stroke. So if there were healthier stroke participants, good for them, but we had to remove them from our clinical trial. So we recruited N participants. We had to remove 1 of them because we couldn't collect high quality brain signals from that person. And thereafter, we ended up doing our clinical trial using 8 participants. 7 of them completed these 9 sessions. So they had 1 session practice, 1 to 2 sessions practice at home. And thereafter, they had 9 sessions of 1 hour rehabilitation after that. So 7 of our participants completed the intervention. 1 of them dropped after 3 weeks because the carer was not available anymore. And they needed the carer to help them to set up the EEG cap. And at the end, we analyzed the data of 7 participants. But in total, we were looking at the acceptance rate, The recruitment rate was 88.8%, adherence rate was 87%, and retention rate 85%. So in total, these are really promising, and it made us optimistic related to this technology because the percentages are pretty high compared to other existing rehabilitation devices. Very briefly, I'm aware of time, just to let you know that these 7 patients, so we had 8 patients, one of them dropped, and now we are left with 7 patients. These 7 patients, you can see how many months they were after a stroke, and we had some of them even 144 months, something like 12 years after a stroke, one of them 15 years after a stroke, and some of them 10 months after a stroke. And in terms of improvement in function, especially I encourage you to look at FMAS score, Fugl-Meyer upper limb assessment, and you saw some of, I didn't include patient number 5 because they had Botox inserted, and when we have Botox, we cannot do this assessment, and it affects the results because the Botox effect can change over the time, and it impacted the functional ability of our the muscle. So just looking at these 6 participants, we have participant 1 that the score of their movement improved from 12 to 21, and it means that initially this participant was severely disabled, and now after this 9 session of rehabilitation, they are moderately disabled. We saw improvement in all participants, but I should insist that it was an acceptability clinical trial. It was not focused on efficacy. Usually for efficacy trial, we need to have something like 18 sessions minimum, and here we had only 9 sessions. But these preliminary motor outcomes make us very optimistic about this technology, encouraging us to go further. Another thing that is really interesting, we asked them about how easy it is setting up the EEG using the system at home, and we see that there are, they managed to do that, and there are some variations, but something that was interesting is that the variation as session 1, session 2, they were stronger, but over the time, the variation got smaller and smaller. So it shows that setting up the EEG over the time, it was much easier for our patients. And this is what we observed also. In the first few sessions, they needed more help from the physiotherapist or researcher, but toward the end sessions, when the physiotherapist usually connected to the system, everything was set, they had the cap, everything ready just to do the rehabilitation. So they showed that after a few sessions, they could do this rehabilitation independently. So what I can say is that the main economic outcome of such technology is that it can potentially improve the recovery of our stroke patients. So the disability cost to the society can be reduced, and this is because it's an active rehabilitation by linking brain and muscles. It can save the physiotherapist time because a physiotherapist can control, monitor multiple sessions at the same time. Usually they are needed only for the first 5-10 minutes, and thereafter they can move to the next patient, so they can have 6 monitors monitoring 5-6 patients at the same time. So it is cost effective when we have such lack of number of physiotherapists in the country. The patients, they don't need to travel to the clinic, so they can save their time. And also it's more accessible treatment to rural area, to areas that are far from the hospitals. And also it's better engagement of healthcare resources. So a physiotherapist from the other parts of the country or the other country even can provide rehabilitation. So it doesn't mean that it has to be only physiotherapists from the patient's region. And it's a safer rehabilitation if you have pandemic or there is any situation like this, given that usually stroke patients are elderly, they have a lot of health problem, and they need to be more cautious about their health. So I would like to briefly just summarize that, okay, the results are promising, but it needed bigger study. It was just proof of concept, feasibility study, so we need to have more data. We need to collect data from more patients, look at the efficacy, bigger sample size. And I would like, and also it's really interesting and important to further improve the hardware, software. We got really good feedback from our patients how the EEG needs to be improved. There are some lessons learned that we need to apply. And also we got some feedback about how the interface or software can be improved. Generally, it's a multidisciplinary area, the field that engineers, psychologists, cognitive behavioral therapists, neuroscientists, they can work together and make a big difference to the patients. So at the end, I just want to thank my team that they contributed, and also the funders of my research, and especially Medical Research Council in UK, that they funded the project that I presented to you. So that's all. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mahnaz. Some really exciting results there. And so if anybody has any questions, again, please feel free to raise your hands. We may only have time for just the one, given we are due to go for a break. So if I'll take the pleasure of asking this one then. So I'm interested in sort of the sample that you selected. Of course, it was a small one, and perhaps it was just driven by convenience, but the sort of selection of people who had a stroke an extremely long time ago, that doesn't seem like a best case scenario for you, but you showed sort of some interesting results. So I was just interested in the motivation behind that, and whether you would prefer to sort of focus on those in the earlier phase of that sort of recovery process.
That's a really interesting question. So this was a single arm clinical trial, so we didn't have a control. And usually in the earlier stage of the stroke, even if they don't do anything, there is going to be some improvement. So if we were focusing on subacute stage, we might have seen some improvement that was not because of our technology. It might be because the time is passing and the brain tries to survive. So it was one of the reasons. The other thing is that for the first 6 months, they are receiving physiotherapies and other rehabilitation from the health system. And it's not ethical for us to ask them to stop it and use this rehabilitation at this stage. So the most convenient for us also, and also for patients, was the chronic stage, because there's nothing that they available for them to get engaged. So they were really keen to come and do this rehabilitation. And it was easier for us to conclude that if we see any improvement, it should be because of our technology, because usually literature shows that there shouldn't be significant, meaningful improvement. But I agree, it's a small sample size. It was very proof of concept, feasibility study. We need more data even to show the acceptability. These results are encouraging, but we need more data. It's just data from 9 patients. And we need also some sorts of control arm to have a fair comparison, to better understand what are the main causes of this improvement, because you may tell me that, okay, it can be because of FES, not linking it with brain. Of course, what we have in meta-analysis, we showed that no, it should be better. But this is a first stage. We showed that patients can use EEG, BCI at home with remote supervision, and we are hoping to move forward.